Growing up, I saw multiple videos on the theory of who Ash's dad was. Theories filled people's heads. Was it Giovanni? Professor Oak? Mr. Mime? Seriously, why did people think that was a possibility? We literally saw the moment Mime joined the family. Ash caught him, too. Disregarding that, there was always a character whom I found to be interesting. He was either the one that people were certain was the answer, or was disregarded immediately in favor of other options. Mime. This man is Silver. For those of you who don't know him, he's a character of the day from Pokemon Chronicles, who has a fascination with the legendary Moltres. Not too much is known about him, but he does seem to have some relationship with Ash.
It's just like this friend of mine, a Pokemon trainer named Ash.
Ash?
So that got me thinking. What if Silver was Ash's dad? And that question was immediately answered. As if he really is, nothing would really change. Still, I began to craft a story in which Silver was a little more involved in Ash's life. Some of these things feel like a bit of a stretch, but today is the day for things that aren't normal. So let's begin our very first April Fool's What If.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is truly a fight to the finish. The challengers who have made it to the finals of this year's Indigo League Conference are both down to their final Pokemon. Who will be the winner? Will it be the teenage trainer from the Sunny Islands? Or will it be the trainer who's come here from the distant region of Alola? Which of these trainers will go on to the Champion League?
Two teenage boys stand on either side of the battlefield. One, a black-haired teen with a budding goatee, and the other, a silver-haired teen in a light blue shirt. The silver-haired teen seems proud of himself, mentioning how there's no way he'll lose here. He was chosen to light the flame of Moltres, so it's his destiny to go on and take down the champion Lance. That will prove that he has the power he needs to face Moltres again. He looks into the crowd. A girl with brown braided pigtails, as well as a young man with dirty blonde hair, are cheering for him. He locks eyes with the girl, who gives him a blushing smile. With that, he focuses back on the battle, sending out his final Pokemon, the Endurance Pokemon Shelgon. His opponent calls out a powerful force though, a Pokemon unlike any that live in the Kanto region. Covered head to toe in black and red fur, the humanoid feline Pokemon on the other side of the field lets out a proud roar of its name.
And the challenger Kakui sends out his unrivaled ace. The Pokemon who has not fallen once throughout this entire league. It's Incineroar!
The heel Pokemon flexes proudly, before it rushes in to face Shelgon head-on. The team commands his Draconic partner to use Dragon Breath. But Incineroar deflects with a powerful Darkest Lariat, not losing momentum as it charges. Shelgon goes for a takedown, but Incineroar catches Shelgon with a knee to the face, before striking with a Brick Break. The team decides to play defensive, and has Shelgon go for Double Team. As the copies of the dragon are formed, Incineroar looks back to its trainer. Both nod in understanding of each other. As Shelgon goes for another Dragon Breath, a Darkest Lariat just knocks the attack back, destroying the clones and damaging the original. Then Incineroar strikes with a Throat Chop, only further damaging the Endurance Pokemon. It seems able to keep fighting though, so the team commands his Draconic companion to use Hyper Beam. However, as the powerful blast begins to charge up, a bright glow comes from Kakui's wrists. Pokemon and trainer move in sync, and Incineroar is soon imbued with a golden glow, before it strikes with the power of an all-out, malicious Moonsault.
And Kakui's done it! Using the power of his home, he and Incineroar have claimed victory over Silver. Kakui is officially the Indigo League Conference Champion!
The announcer's words echo throughout Indigo Plateau. Cheers erupt as Kukui and Incineroar stand side by side, striking a pose and telling everyone to enjoy! Meanwhile, Silver falls to his knees, unable to accept this. He, the one who carried Moltres' flame, had failed. It's been nearly 12 years since that fateful day. Delia Ketchum, now in her mid-20s, carries a nicely decorated cake to her son, Ash. She wishes the little boy a happy 6th birthday, as the little boy ecstatically blows out his candles. The two begin to dig into the birthday cake, until Ash oddly stops. He asks his mother a simple question. When will his dad be home? Delia gives her son a somber smile, saying that he knows his father, always chasing after his dream. Ash's smile fades slightly, as he mentions how he'd promised he wouldn't miss it this time. Delia responds to this with a hug, saying that she knows, and she's sorry that his father isn't here currently. She assures him that his father is just running late. This cheers the boy up a bit, and so he goes back to eating his cake. Hours pass, and Delia puts the young boy to bed. As she returns to their humble living room, the front door is sent flying open, as a much older-looking Silver enters. Before Delia can say anything to her husband, the man tosses aside his brown trench coat and bag in an exclamation that his search was a bust. The rumors of Moltres being sighted in the Orange Archipelago were all awash. He exclaims that Fire Island was nothing but a waste of his time, as he flops down into a recliner chair, his partner Chikorita taking its place on a pet-sized bed in the corner. Silver then notices the look on his spouse's face, and asks what's wrong, to which he's reminded of his only son's birthday. Silver scoffs, saying that he doesn't remember his son turning 10 today, so it's not like he would be of any help. It becomes quickly apparent that this did not make Delia happy. The man sighs, giving in to his wife's wishes and stating that he'll go talk to Ash. There, he picks up his bag and heads to Ash's room. With a more threatening tone than he meant to use, Silver wakes up his son. The little boy flails around in a half-asleep fear, before he realizes that his father was the one who woke him up. Silver sits down, apologizing to his son for not being here when he said he would. He explains that he was really hoping to battle Moltres, but he failed to. The young Ash tries to be understanding, but Silver knows that he's just a little kid. An idea occurs to him, and he reaches into his bag. Silver mentions that he did find one thing on his journey. Now curious as to what it is, Ash eagerly waits, only for his father to pull out a Pokemon egg inside an incubator. He mentions that he obtained it from an old man who had been lost at sea around Naval Island. No one really knew where the man was from, and the man could only remember living on a small island surrounded by a labyrinth of water originally. He took it with him, but it hasn't hatched yet. Though, Silver figured he wouldn't have the time to take care of a newly hatched Pokemon himself. Ash eagerly states that he could take care of it. Jokingly, Silver asks if he's sure, as taking care of a Pokemon is a big responsibility. The 6-year-old boy seems eager to, so Silver hands it over. Ash hugs the incubator, before saying that when he grows up he wants to be a strong trainer, just like his dad. Silver's face becomes more stern, before he says that, if that's the case, then once that egg hatches, they'll begin training together. Ash looks wide-eyed, asking if his father really means it. Silver nods, stating that he'll train him once he's of age. Ash is very excited by the idea of becoming a strong trainer like his dad, so much so that he can barely sleep that night. He can only wait for the day to come when he's able to become a trainer. Years pass, and the young Ash Ketchum has grown into a young, 12-year-old boy. He sits along the coast of one island,
fishing rod in hand, and his partner Pokemon, Togepi, by his side. He waits patiently, watching the red and white bobbers sway in the moving tide. Togepi looks up at him with confusion, but he tells the little spike ball to just keep being patient. He's sure that together they'll be able to catch it, just like his father did. As if on cue, something tugs at the line of his fishing pole. As the bobber sinks beneath the ocean's surface, Ash leaps to his feet, pulling on the fishing pole and reeling with all of his might. Whatever is on the end of this line puts up a fight, and Togepi tries to help his trainer by pulling on the leg of his pants. The two heave with everything they have, until finally, the rod is able to pull a large Slowpoke from the sea. Before he can even realize what's going on, Ash tells Togepi to use Metronome. The spike ball wiggles her fingers and gets Venoshock. Multiple dark purple blobs are fired from Togepi's fingers, but it doesn't seem to do much to Slowpoke. Ash is about to call for another Metronome, when he notices the blank expression on Slowpoke's face. He tilts his head, wondering if the Pokemon even knows what's going on, only for his question to be answered by a delayed reaction to the pain of the Venoshock. Ash and Togepi are both stunned by the sheer absurdity, but then they realize something. If Slowpoke didn't know what was going on, then they didn't really need to fight it. So, Ash takes out a Pokeball and drops it on Slowpoke's head, catching the dopey Pokemon. With Slowpoke caught, Ash and Togepi return to the main town of One Island. There he finds many people to already be waiting for him, but most important of all, is his mother Delia. Before she can even ask, Ash sends out Slowpoke to reveal to the crowd. They gasp, with many being able to recognize it as the same Slowpoke that Silver caught all those years ago. Slowpoke were rare in these parts, but this one in particular was seen as the king of them due to its larger size. The townsfolk congratulate this 12-year-old on his seemingly impossible accomplishment. All except for Delia, that is. Ash goes up to his mother, saying that a deal is a deal. She nods, remembering the promise she made to him. Delia acknowledges that as much as she doesn't want Ash to leave home like his father did, all boys leave home someday. That night, as Ash begins packing, Delia approaches him. Despite making the promise to let him go, she tries to convince him to stay. She doesn't want him to pursue the life of a Pokemon trainer like his dad did. Ash replies that this was what he and Togepi had been preparing for. Besides, he wants to know why Dad prefers being a trainer so much that he hasn't seen him in years. Delia tries to tell her son that it will be dangerous, especially given what Pokemon his father has been seeking. But Ash still insists. The next morning, Ash and Delia head to the docks, where a ship called the Sea Gallop is waiting. Delia tells her son that Silver will be hard to find, as the last place she knew he was heading towards was Mount Silver in the Johto region. It had been 4 years since then, so he could be anywhere now. Ash smiles, simply saying he'll just have to start in Johto then. So with that, Ash and Delia have to say their goodbyes. Ash boards the Sea Gallop, and is soon on his way across the sea, believing that wherever his dad is, he'll be able to find him. Silver trudges through a forest. It glimmers with glowing mushrooms. Many small Pokemon walk around in the shadows of the forest, paying Silver no mind. Not that he pays them any either. His gaze is fixated in the direction of his walk. More specifically, a large tree that appears closer with every step. When he makes it to the tree, he takes the bag off his back. It falls over due to its own weight, causing an assortment of berries and edible mushrooms to tumble out onto the grass. Silver then calls out the name of Moltres, mentioning how supper's ready. Slowly, A large bird of flame crawls out from under a massive root. The orange and yellow goose slowly inches forward, before it begins to dig into the berries and shrooms. Silver asks the avian creature if these have made it happy, to which he receives a satisfied nod from Moltres. Silver's eyes widened with an excitement he hasn't had since he was a boy. He then asks that if Moltres will finally battle him. Unfortunately, this question is met with disdain from Moltres, who merely goes back to eating. Silver slouches over, mumbling how it's been 5 years and he still can't gain Moltres' favor. He takes a seat on the ground, simply watching his legendary friend gobble the food he worked so hard to bring. His stomach growls, so he reaches for a citrus berry, only for Moltres to give him a hateful stare. He has no other choice but to back down. Silver watches in disappointment as all the food is gobbled up greedily by Moltres. How could things have come to this? It had been 4 years since he left his wife and kid. A man with an interesting beard had given him the tip that a creature resembling Moltres was seen around the Crown Tundra in the Galar region. So he took a ship to Galar, ending up in a port near the strange woods. He didn't even get through this forest before he was able to find the legend. However, this wasn't anything like he had in mind. Rather than battling him, the bird merely taunted him with the idea of achieving his dream. Every day was the same. He'd wake up, he'd forage for only the best food. He'd give it to Moltres. Moltres wouldn't give him what he wanted. There was just no pleasing this legendary Pokemon. Now it was at a point where he wished he could just go home. His son was probably the age of 12 now. Hopefully Delia had already allowed him to begin traveling, though it would mean he most likely wouldn't see his son. Still, at least his wife would be there. Now that was a face he missed. Yet if he ever wanted to leave, Moltres wouldn't let him. At the same time, though, he couldn't give up on his dream. Not when he was so close to achieving it. He just had to do as Moltres asked. Surely that would free him of this prison. Right? All this thinking and lack of eating was beginning to get to Silver. He could feel his eyelids getting heavier, and his body began to grow numb. He'd been working himself to the bone. He probably should take a rest, right? Moltres would allow him that, at least. So, he allowed himself to succumb to his exhaustion. The last thing he saw being the legend of his dreams. Two trainers walk through the woods. Both look around at all the sparkling and glowing mushrooms as they make their way across the path. At one point, the male of the two stops, pointing something out in the distance. The two see a man fast asleep, next to the largest tree of the woods. Looking down at him was a humanoid Pokemon, a mix of pink, blue, and white in color. It had an antenna that resembled a witch's hat. The male asks if they should help the man, but the girl is adamant that they don't, exclaiming how that's the forest witch. If that man is under her control, then he's already a goner. It'll take a miracle to save him. So with that, the two walk away, leaving the man and the witch to their devices. The Sea Gallop has set sail, and Ash couldn't be more excited. He and Togepi look out at the expanse of ocean before them. He had seen the ocean before. As an islander, it wasn't exactly difficult. Yet with him now leaving home, seeing the sea felt different somehow. He then notices a commotion beginning on the boat. On the other side of the deck, women are crowding around a man with blue hair. Each one fawns over him, calling out how cool and handsome he is. He is asked by a few about what he's doing on the boat, as they thought he was be back at his gym in Johto. He smiles, saying that the gym is being handled by his father currently, as he's just now returning home from a trip to Kalos. The women fawn over him once again, asking him if he can explain more. The man states casually that in due time they will learn, but for now, they can know that he had been scouted by a certain organization, due to some of the other work he's done beyond being a gym leader. This only gets the women riled up, as they all beg him to please tell them more. They want him to tell them more. The crowd is broken up with the sound of a snarky, yet tired voice, pointing out how Faulkner isn't that great. After all, he was able to beat his birds the first time he tried. This gets the attention of the ladies, as well as Faulkner. Many of the women don't recognize the snarky boy, but Faulkner does. He approaches, holding out a hand to shake, as he says it's interesting to see the former Silver Conference trainer, Gary Oak. Gary blows off the handshake, as well as the mention of the Silver Conference, stating that he's surprised a bird brain like Faulkner would be scouted for anything. Faulkner takes it in stride, mentioning how he's at least been keeping himself busy by doing what's requested of him. It had been, what, 2 years since Gary last battled officially? What had the grandson of Professor Oak been up to after losing in the quarterfinals? Any self-confidence Gary had vanishes the instant Faulkner brings up his loss. The once brash boy now begins to avoid eye contact, while all the ladies begin to giggle at his expense. Faulkner stops them, though, telling them that was enough. He then clarifies that he wasn't asking for the purpose of humiliating the Cantonian, but rather because he was actually curious. After Gary was defeated, he seemed to vanish from all official Pokemon League matches without a trace. Gary doesn't seem to buy this, especially given how Faulkner speaks with a self-righteous attitude. Still, he mutters something about how his Gramps has been giving him errands to run. Originally, he was sent to one island in order to help Celio and Bill with getting the PC system running there. Now his Gramps had called him over to Johto to see him off after his radio show in Goldenrod. Faulkner gives the tween a smile, before mentioning how that's good. It allows Gary to see more of the world. Who knows? Maybe I'll find something new to take part in. This only annoys Gary, who mentions that just because he lost a league doesn't mean he's gonna quit battling. He's Gary Oak. And he doesn't need to talk like this from someone like Faulkner. Faulkner tries to apologize, saying that he didn't mean it like that, but Gary doesn't care. He's had it with Faulkner's self-righteousness. Maybe it's about time someone taught him a lesson. This actually gets the group of ladies excited, as the idea of seeing Faulkner fight is something they're very interested in. So, with a crowd of fangirls, it does make it difficult for the gym leader to refuse. So, the two send out Pidgeot and Blastoise to begin their fight. Ash witnesses this battle starting, which gets him a little excited, as this is the first big battle he's seeing up close. However, Togepi's attention is redirected to something else. The Spike Ball Pokemon notices dark clouds begin to swirl. The little egg manages to get Ash's attention, causing him to realize what's going on. They're heading right into a storm. He had to warn everyone. So with that, he makes a run for it, not noticing that someone is watching him from a nearby window. Soon, Pidgeot is able to realize this as well, warning his trainer. Faulkner stops the battle, stating that everyone needs to get inside now. He also turns to Gary, but finds that the tween has already returned Blastoise and is running off, shouting for everyone to get inside right then and there. Faulkner smiles, before he begins warning people as well. They enter the storm, and the Sea Gallop is tossed with the waves. As people get below deck, many find themselves getting seasick. Eventually, it seems only Faulkner and Gary are the only ones able to move normally. As the two of them wait below deck for the storm to let up, that's when one of the ship's crew comes down to get them. They're surprised to see that these two are the only ones left standing, but nonetheless tells them that if they're trainers, then they need to speak with the captain of the ship now. The two look at each other, unsure of the reasoning for this, but still comply nonetheless. When they reach the captain's quarters, they find another guy already in there. He's about Gary's age and has a Togepi with him. Faulkner gets a little interested as he looks at the healthy Spike Ball and mentions how he's been interested in raising a Togekiss himself. However, they're eventually silenced by the entrance of a man in a long black coat. His demeanor is commanding. His posture is demanding. He walks in with the notion of thanking them all for joining him, as he heard of these 3 trainers being on the boat. It's lucky that they aren't seasick, as they might be needed. Gary asks what a group of 3 trainers is going to do about a storm. However, the man corrects him. He doesn't need them for the storm, but rather what may come out of it. Based on information he had gained from Hoen's Weather Institute, the types of clouds they had just run into are similar to those that appear when the Guardian of the Seas is found. While it is extremely rare that they will see such a creature, if they do, then they'll need as many strong trainers as they can get in order to defend the ship. Faulkner counters this, asking if there was anything they could have done to even remotely anger this Guardian of the Seas. But the captain is doubtful. Regardless of what the reason is, the group needs to get ready for the possibility. Still, he knows they are young, so he's giving them the choice. The 3 are a bit uncertain, especially when it's pointed out that Ash and Togepi seem to be pretty new to the Pokemon trainer business. However, each of them still agree. This pleases the captain, as well as intrigues him. He asks them what their goals are. Ash quickly states that he wants to know why his father became a trainer. Faulkner refuses, as he's unsure whether he can trust this man, while Gary states that he doesn't currently have one at the moment. The man sighs, straightening his hat. He states that if that's the case, then so be it. He's sure that certain people wouldn't be too happy to hear that. Gary asks if that's supposed to be some kind of a threat, only to get a glare from the man. Faulkner then realizes who they're talking to. This isn't just any seafaring captain. This was Drake of the Hoenn Elite Four. Drake nods, mentioning how Faulkner catches on quickly. But that's to be expected of a gym leader. Faulkner sets his jaw before stating that he's no longer a gym leader, at least not full-time. What they probably didn't know was that he was also working part-time for the Violet City Police. However, recently he was given a promotion of sorts. Ash acknowledges how he mentioned going to Kalos when talking with those girls, but what did that have to do with the police? As a response, Faulkner pulls out a badge, stating that he is now a member of the International Police, with the task of tracking down a certain group of poachers, one of whom had last been seen around Johto. Gary scoffs, before stating that he should have known a guy like Faulkner would do something like that. This actually ticks Faulkner off, as he mentions that at least he's doing something good in the world. Gary's just become a glorified errand boy. This then angers Gary, who argues that he's just helping out his Gramps until he feels like getting back into beating gym leaders like him. Before the two can escalate this argument, Drake breaks it up, stating that they have no time for bickering. If they're gonna keep this up, then we'll just have to have them help the cabin boy instead. This shuts the two up immediately, as both are still interested in seeing this Guardian of the Sea, even if there's only a slim chance. The four step onto the deck of the Sea Gallop, only for them to find themselves being caught in worse waves than before. The crew races around, trying to make sure the ship doesn't topple over, and that everything is safe and secure. At one point, Drake sees a group of two near the back of the boat, slowly moving a large wooden box. He sternly yells at them, telling them he thought he told them to get all the cargo downstairs before they left one island. Both apologize, only for the boat to crash into another large wave. The two tumble over, dropping the large crate onto the ground. One falls face first onto the cargo, but the other isn't so lucky. With his balance lost, he stumbles back until his legs come in contact with a singular metal railing. His legs give way, and he finds himself plummeting into the depths of the fierce ocean current. Drake calls for the man before readying a Pokeball. However, Ash runs in before he can do anything. Drake tells the kid to stop, but Ash still leaps over the railing, diving in after the man. Faulkner and Gary rush in after him. The two both vault over the side and begin to hang off the boat, not wanting to fully dive in just yet. However, Ash and the crewmen are nowhere to be seen. Ash swims deeper underwater. The crashing of waves above has no effect on him. He swims deeper into the depths, until he notices the outline of someone. He picks up the pace of his breaststrokes, kicking harder in order to move faster. Just then, he's able to grab onto the outline. Pulling him closer, Ash is able to correctly identify that this is the crewman he was looking for. But the man is heavy. Ash kicks with all his might, but he can only feel himself falling deeper into what soon would become his watery grave. Before he knows it, Ash is brought back to the surface. The waves beat against him and the crewman, but something then begins to shield him. He looks up to see the assuring face of a large blue Pokemon. Gary calls out, referring to the Pokemon as Blastoise, and tells it that he did a good job. Before long, a large winged dragon flies out from the deck, soaring out just low enough for Ash and the crewman to be placed on top by Blastoise. Everyone returns to the Sea Gallop, and medical attention is immediately brought to the crewmen. Drake thanks the trio for their work, and assures them that the crewmate will be alright. Luckily, he wasn't in the water long enough for there to be too much lasting damage, if any at all. The three are relieved by this, before they head below deck to rest, per Drake's instructions. Just before Ash exits, he looks up, noticing the storm is beginning to subside. A rainbow can be spotted, streaking across the sky. Strange. Ash didn't remember rainbows ever moving. He shrugs though, before calling for Togepi to come along. Togepi nods, then notices two different colored feathers descending from the sky. One of rainbow, and one of silver land in front of the egg. Confused, the baby Pokemon grabs the feathers, before following after her trainer. Drake smiles through his white mustache, before thinking about the boy. Leaping off the boat was brash, but it also reminded the seaman of a young man he had met some time back. He wondered if there was a connection. Regardless, it was time to get back to work. Immediately, he has two new crewmen work on getting that final box of cargo below deck with the rest. The two salute, before grabbing onto the box. They turn it over, showing a gold logo in the shape of an octahedral prism, before they all lift it in the efforts to carry it away. Inside the dark box, a beast moves within the shadows. It groans out of anger and pain, but a hand touches it. The hand gently strokes it, while a voice shushes the creature. A boy in black, with blonde hair, affirms to the beast that everything is okay. They're safe now.